are you? So it is December 16th, the year is almost over, and today I will be upcycling these 3 garments into Shakhmous inspired pieces. Let's get into it. The first thing we're going to do is to cut. We're making some cuts. So for the striped one, if you look at the image, the slit starts from the shoulder. We don't have much shoulder. We don't have much shoulder to work with, but I'll try. So I'm gonna open up the shoulder seam, and then once I open up the shoulder seam, I'm gonna cut a straight line down to the bottom. Our handy dandy seam ripper. So now we have our open shoulder. So I'm gonna mark about halfway. About halfway. So we're gonna mark a line here. No measurement, just a guesstimate. Then I'm going to draw a line from the midpoint we marked along the shoulder to this mark along the hem. About there. Alright. There's our mark. So I'm gonna measure the midpoint along the shoulders, and then on the bottom, I'm gonna do a little estimate. Just gonna drag my finger along to what would seem to be a straight line and mark it there. And we cut. And we hope for the best. Okay. Then on the other side, we pin her in place as well. I'm gonna place this down here. So once again, mark the midpoint. So, mistake. So I was supposed to cut, I'll show you the reference image. So I was supposed to cut from the neckline down and not from the shoulder line down, which is great, just great. Oh boy, mistakes are fun. Happy accidents. Happy accidents, happy accidents. I used a satin bias tape to finish off my ends because that's what I had available to me. Of course, you don't have to use the same thing I did. If you have enough fabric, you can double fold your hem, Or you could opt to use a long strip of fabric which you attach in the same way I've done the bias tape. To attach the bias tape, make sure the right side of the bias tape is facing the right side of the fabric. You open up one of the folds that aligns with the side of the fabric you want to finish. You sew into the crease of that fold, then you flip over the bias tape onto the back of the fabric and you sew down along the edge. Okay, so for this one, because it is multiple colors, I don't want to just pick one color and sew across because it will show up and that will visually disturb me. So I'm gonna hem it by hand. So I've just folded it in there. So I'm just gonna thread this. I'm just gonna thread this like this and then tie a knot.
Grabbing a little of the sweater fabric, taking it through the bias once more, wrap around the needle and pull. Then we go through the fold. Go through the fold. Then once again, when we reach the other side, and when we reach further down along, we grab a little bit of the sweater fabric, go through the bias, wrap around, and pull. And we're just gonna keep doing that all the way down.
Good morning. So it's the next day and I managed to finish off the ends of all the garments, and today I want to sew on the buttonholes and sew on all the buttons. Got my chalk and my tape measure. So the first thing you need to figure out is which side will have the buttonholes and which side will have the buttons. Like for this middle section, I want the buttons to be on this piece, so that means the buttonholes will be over here. So you just need to figure out how many buttonholes you actually want. For this middle section, my first buttonhole will be towards at the top, and then from there I want them to be 2 inches apart. So I'm going to mark that all the way down. That's basically it. You figure out which side will have the buttons, which side will have the buttonholes, and then you put where you want the first button to start. Then you mark the distance in between each buttonhole, then you sew the buttonholes on. So it has been quite literally 4 hours. I had some issues with the machine, but we made it through. So for this garment, I had some difficulty getting the machine to sew the buttonholes onto it. The material is a tad bit slippery and it's also soft. So I had to put this paper behind the fabric while I sewed to act as a stabilizer, and that helped a lot. I'm gonna finish off the diagonal one by sewing the sleeve back up. Let me move y'all over here. The side with the buttons is under the side with the buttonholes. So that's what we're gonna do. So if we turn it inside out, I'm going to sew down the buttonhole side. The side with the buttons is under the side with... I'm going to sew down the buttonhole side first, and then I will lay down the side that's going to have the buttons. Last thing we're going to do is to sew on some buttons. To mark the positions of the buttons, I've aligned the buttonhole placket to the side that will hold the buttons, and I have marked each buttonhole that is on the placket onto the other side, and that is where I will sew the buttons. Just like that.